Welcome back everyone. So in today's video we will be going through a very quick ETL project, and this is on how to load data from Amazon S3 to PostgreSQL database. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so like I mentioned, in today's video we will be going through a very quick project on how to load data from Amazon S3 to PostgreSQL database. Okay, so let's jump into the demo. So the first thing that we need to do is to load data into our Amazon S3 packet. So I'll just quickly show you. This is my AWS account, and I'm just going to go to my S3, and I will go to the packet that we will be getting the data from. So this is the packet right here. Just if you don't have any packet, just go ahead and create a packet. It should be a very straightforward process. Just hit create, put the name, and just pre-fill the rest of this. Mostly you can just leave it as a default, but just put the name here. It has to be unique, and then just go ahead and hit create down right here, and it's going to create your packet. And then so once you have your packet, so I'm going to go into this packet. I also created another sub packet here called incoming data to put my data, and here I do have some other subfolders as well. But for this video, the file that will be loading to PostgreSQL database is this one here, car prices, and this data I got it from Kakol. I will also put the link for Kakol in the description, but I just went to Kakol website and just grab this data for car prices, and this is how the data looks like. Just at a high level, you have the brand, model, year, engine size, fuel type, and things like that. I think I probably also downloaded this to Excel, and I don't think it's here. But if I can just quickly download how this file looks like, just going to download this, and we will preview how it looks. So I am going to go to this file. Actually, I think it's this one here, and I renamed it. So I'm just going to open this on Excel. Okay, so this is how the file looks like. So we have the brand of the car, the model, the year, engine size, fuel type, transmission, mileage, doors. So this, you know, and including the price as well. So this is the preview of the file, and as you can see, we have around 10,000 records without the header. So this is a file that will be loading to our PostgreSQL database. I'm actually going to leave this file open. Okay, so that is the packet. This is the packet, and this is the file name that will be loading into our PostgreSQL database. Okay, so now to load into PostgreSQL database, the other prerequisite that you need to have is to have your PostgreSQL database setup. So I already did that. I have made videos previously where I went through the process of installing PostgreSQL database on your environment and how to connect to it. So this is my dpifer, which is one of the SQL client tools that you can also use to connect to your PostgreSQL database. You can also use pgadmin, so whichever one you prefer, it doesn't matter. So for me, I like using dpifer because it's much easier to use and to query the database. So I made the connection from my Postgre, which is what I have right here. So I do have my connection to PostgreSQL database up and running here, and also I made a video on this as well, on how to connect to PostgreSQL database from dpifer. So I will also put a link for that if you're interested. And so we do have now our setup ready. So we have our Postgre here, which is running locally in this case. So it's running on localhost port 5432. If I expand this, you can see that I currently have a number of databases. Yours might be different. I do have these databases created before, and so right here, this will be the schema that we'll be using in this. Actually, the database I will be using in this video will be loading that file from S3 to this database. Okay, so if we go here, if I expand this database, you will see that we don't have any table, we don't have any fields. Okay, so what we expect to see is when we load our data, we want that file to be successfully loaded into this location. Okay, so let's now go over to the code where we are implementing this. Okay, so this is just basically an ETL. Say if there's any requirement that requires you to load data from S3 to PostgreSQL database. It doesn't have to be local host. It can be a server that is running, and you just want to bring data from S3. Say you are ingesting data from APIs or from getting data from other databases and putting it in S3 as your storage layer, and you want to load that data to your database. Then this is how you will do it. Okay, so all right, so we have our database here now. So let's go over now to the code. So I'm going to go over to my Visual Studio Code right here, and I already loaded the folder. I already loaded the folder where my project is. Basically, you just need to go once you open Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is a code editor that is very popular. It's really good if you are doing some programming work. So you can use it, and you can download it from the internet. It should be pretty straightforward. And then once you have it downloaded and installed, just go here and just create the folder. You can create a folder from your workspace, or you can even come here actually and create it from your from terminal. Doesn't matter. And then just come here and open the folder, point it to where you have that folder. So in this case, I do have the folder that we'll be using is this one for data engineering right here. So I'm just going to do that and open, and it's going to open here. So just click here. So you have two icons here. You can use this one for Explorer, or you can use this one, which I like because this one opens the file where the folder where your files are located. Okay, so I have the file open here now, and so the first thing that we need to do is to create a Python virtual environment. Okay, so we want to install the libraries that we'll be using to interact and to load our data from S3 to PostgreSQL database. We will be loading and creating those libraries inside a Python virtual environment. So the reason for that is because you want to isolate it. You don't want to install these libraries globally because it's going to cause a mess in your environment. So we just want to isolate them inside a Python virtual environment. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to go, if you go here, right here, if you go here, and then just open a new terminal, it's going to actually open a terminal for you right here. So it's going to open it down here, and then so this is inside your data engineering, which is the folder that's up right here. Okay, so you're inside here, and I'm just going to then create a Python virtual environment here. So we'll just go ahead and do Python 3. So I'm using Mac, so I have Python 3, which is this is how you define it. If you have Python 2, I think you can also use Python 2 or just Python, I guess. We will create a Python virtual environment. Let me see if I can increase this. Okay, so we will create a Python virtual environment, and I'm just going to call this one fee and fee. This is going to create the Python virtual environment, and then we just want to activate this. So to do that, we'll do source fee and fee, and then pin and activate. Okay, so this is going to activate. So when you see this means that your Python virtual environment is activated, because you can see that you are now switched on to that environment. Okay, so then if you do ls here, you will see that we do have the files there. We do pip freeze, it should be empty. Okay, so that means we don't have any libraries inside this virtual environment. So then the next thing that we need to do is to install the libraries that we will be using in this video to load our data. So for that, I have created this requirements file here, and the libraries we'll be using are this one here, the 3 of them. So this Poto3 is a AWS SDK that lets you read or write data to Amazon S3. This Psycop G2 is a PostgreSQL database adapter that lets you work with Python, basically. So it's a Python adapter that you can use to read and write data to Postgres database. And then pandas is basically just a library that lets you interact with data, kind of structured data. So like CSV, you can also use it to read structured data in Excel file. So basically kind of a structured data that is in a tabular format, you can use pandas to read and interact with that data. Okay, so these are the 3 libraries that we'll be using. And so to install these libraries, all you have to do is just come right here, and we will do we'll do pip install, and we'll just do r requirements. I think that's it. Okay, so don't know why it's saying globally. I don't think that's the case. So we'll just enter there, and it is going to install those libraries inside our Python virtual environment. And now if you do pip freeze, again you will see that you now have Poto3 installed, and you have pandas as well as the Scicop G2. Okay, so we are good now with our libraries. Now actually let me just leave it in zoomed in. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do then is to create our code to load this data from AWS to our PostgreSQL database. Okay, so for that I have this file here created. So inside this SRC I have just populated, and I'll just be walking you through what I've done. Now if you want to do that, I'm using a Python notebook, so kind of like a Jupyter. It looks like Jupyter code. I like this because you can it lets you run the code line by line without having to execute the Python code every time you make changes, so it's much easier to use. And to do that, you can just go right here and say the file, let's say file.ipython notebook, like that. So it's ipython np. So if you do it like that, then you will just see the file created here, and that's how you create a kind of like Jupyter notebook within Visual Studio Code. And then you can just go here and write your code right here. Okay, so now remember, if you let's say import pandas as PD in this case, so when you do that, it's going to ask you to select the environment or the kernel that you'll be using. So because we installed our libraries inside a Python virtual environment, you will probably see it right here with the version of Python we are using. So in this case, we have Phi and Phi as our Python virtual environment, and the Python version we're using is 3.11. So just select it, and then if you save it and just run that, so you'll see most likely something popping up like this, running cells with Phi and Phi requires IPython kernel. Okay, so this IPython kernel is what is powering the notebook here. So just go ahead and install it. It's going to install it for you down here, and then when it's done, you should be able to run. Okay, so you can see it's done now, and you can go ahead and execute that line of code. So it will let you now to so you can see this one is complete. So from here on now, you can just run your notebooks, and you should be good. Okay, so I'm just going to close this. And I'm just probably just going to delete it because I will not be using it. So this is the Python notebook. I just created it in a similar manner, and then now we will be going through what this notebook is doing. Okay, so let me just zoom out a little bit so we can see what's doing. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to of course import those libraries that we'll be using. So in this case, we will be using Poto3, and like I mentioned, Poto3 is AWS SDK for Python, and it's used to interact with Amazon S3. Okay, and then Scicop 2 is a PostgreSQL database adapter for Python, which lets you work with Python while reading or writing data to your PostgreSQL database. And then pandas is used to manipulate and load CSV file into a data frame. And then we'll also be using string.io, which will allow us to treat file-like objects, which in this case the CSV file, and we will be loading this file into memory instead of reading and writing it from disk. So this is also good when you're working with CSV files and you don't want to write it to disk. Okay, so we'll save this, and now you can just go ahead and run this. So this is the first line here. Okay, so just click Shift return if you are on Mac, and I believe if you are on Windows, Shift Enter will do that, or you can just select it and run it from here. So I think execute the cell below, run line by line. Okay, so if you do this, actually you can run it from here like so. There we go. Okay, so there's this run button right there, so you can just hit that and it's going to run. Okay, and then the next thing we need to do here is to define our database connections. So obviously you don't want to expose this information, but this is my local environment, so there's no risk. But so I'm just defining my host here. So this is a Postgres host. It's on local host in this case, and then this is a port 5432. The database that we'll be using is this one, DemoDB. And let me just go back to our connection here in DB first, so you can see this is our connection, localhost 5432. The database we'll be using is this one, DemoDB. Okay, and then so the user here we're using is Postgres user. So again, this user here is a default user that Postgres provides you when you install Postgres. So this user came with it, and then the password here is the password that I set when I was installing Postgres. If you ended up changing the password or creating a user with connection credentials to Postgres, then you can just specify it right here. I think if you're again working, if you don't want to expose this, then you can create you can store this inside environment variables within your operating system and just call them here, so that you don't have to expose this directly. Okay, so okay, different ways of doing this. And then so we have the password here, and then the table name here. This is a table that will be created when we run this notebook, and this table name will be storing the data that we load from AWS S3. Okay, so we don't have that table here currently, but what we expect is when we run our notebook and load our data, this will be created for us. Now the other thing that I have to mention here is I am not creating this table beforehand. You know that you can do this, you can pre-create a table and then just load the data directly to the table, but in this case we will let our code dynamically create this table if it does not exist and then load the data for us. So I'll be showing you as we move down this block of code. So I'm just going to run this again. Okay, so this will be now storing our database information, and then the next thing is also retrieve our AWS data. So we want to define the S3 packet and the file path where the CSV file is located in S3. So you can see in this case we have the packet name as CK Datatech and the file location is here. Okay, so we are going to also run that, and then now the next step is to load that file basically. So we want to load the file to our basically bring the file from S3. So in this case, we are creating the S3 client using Podo3. We want to retrieve the file from S3 using S3.get object, which is a standard library or method. We will read the file, we'll read and decode the file into a string, and then we will handle any error and convert the CSV data into a file like object using string.io. So this is what this code is doing. So we are basically connecting to S3 using default credentials. Okay, so this is very important right here. So this default credentials. So if you don't have your AWS CLI set up before or the credentials stored on your environment, then you may have to specify the credentials here. Things like the key access and the secret key, or any IAM role if you want. But for my case, I already installed AWS CLI, and there's a video that I made on how to install AWS CLI. I'll also put that in the description. But basically, if you go to our terminal right here, and so let me just zoom this one here. Okay, so if you go to your users directory, this is where the AWS credentials are stored. So if you do LSA, if you have previously installed AWS CLI, it will be inside .aws, which is this one right here. So if we go to that location, AWS, and then I'm just going to list the files here, you can see that we have config and credentials. Okay, so I'm not going to show you what's inside here, but basically if you refill, this will contain your key and access, and also this will contain your configurations. Now you do this one when you just do AWS configure, and this one will be done when you install AWS CLI. Okay, so if you do not have AWS, just go ahead and install it. I already have the video for that, so be free to take a look into that video. And now, because we already have this, then we don't have to specify this information in our configuration here. So we are just calling S3 directly using the Podo3 client, because we already have the credentials in our AWS CLI config in our environment. Okay, so it's going to pick up those credentials automatically, and therefore it's going to run if if all is good. Okay, so we are connecting to S3. So basically here we are connecting, and then we are getting the object from that packet. We will load it to CSV, and then we will want to print if this connection is successful. So if we run this, then you can see here successfully retrieved file from S3. Okay, so that means that we are able to load that data successfully to our CSV file right here. Okay, and then the next thing that we want to do is to load the data into pandas data frame using read CSV. Okay, so in that case we will just go right here. So we want to load it to pandas, and then from pandas we load it over to PostgreSQL database. So we are using a try catch block or a try except block here to catch any errors if there are any. So here we are loading the data into pandas data frame. Okay, so we are defining the data frame here. We are using read CSV to read that file string IO, because it's just coming from memory, and we want to read the CSV data, which is what we got up right here. Okay, and then if there's any error, we want to catch that error right here. So we'll run this, and this one ran successfully. So data successfully loaded into data pandas data frame. Okay, and then so the next thing that we want to do here is to connect now to our PostgreSQL database. So we want to connect first before we do any any operations on this database. So we want to make sure that we are able to connect to the database, and from there then we can proceed and load the data. Okay, so this step here attempts to connect to PostgreSQL database using the provided credentials. So so we are doing the connection here, and we are using the Scicop G2 library. So we're defining the host, the database, the username, password. All of this we define them up right here. Okay, so we're just calling them here, and we are creating a cursor to execute SQL commands, and if there are any errors, we want to retrieve those errors. Okay, so I'm just going to run this, and as you can see, this one successfully connected to our PostgreSQL database. So that means that we are able to now read and connect to our database, which is really good news. If we didn't, then it's going to retrieve the error. It's going to show you the error here and print what the problem is. Now that we have successfully connected to our database, the next thing that we want to do is to create a table, right, and load that data, which is the steps that will be following here. Okay, so we have loaded into pandas data frame. Now the next thing here is we're connected. Okay, so this is a step here. All right, so this is a for here, create a table if it does not exist. So this is just a Python function here that is using the pandas data frame structure to create a table if it's not there already. So you can see here, this generates a create table statement dynamically from the pandas data frame. Okay, so it's going to be using the pandas data frame that we have up here. Where is that step? Right here. So if you let's see if we can, if we do def here and just do head, okay, like so, you can see the first 5 records of how this data looks like. So this is what is inside the data, the pandas data frame. So this is the structure of that file. We have the data here, and if we were to do after this, let's say the df data types, just to show the data types, so you can see that we have the param, which is object. In this case, it's a string. This is a string. This is integer, float, string, and then the rest are integers. Okay, so this is how the data types looks like. You can also check the shape of this, so df shape, so that will tell you that we have 10,000 records and we have 10 columns. Okay, so what we're doing here is basically going through that pandas data frame And what we want to do is, because we are going to be creating this table dynamically, if it doesn't exist, then we want to convert the data types that we get from pandas into SQL compatible data types, because if we run it without converting the data types, then it's not going, like SQL database is not going to, or PostgreSQL is not going to recognize these objects, these data types. So we want to transform them, basically change the data types so that when we create our table, then it's going to be compatible with what Postgre likes. All right, so in this case, we're basically going through the columns, the data frame, we are retrieving the types, and what we are just basically saying that if there's any if any of the field in the data types has an int in it, we want to convert it to integer. If it has float, we want to convert it to float. If it has bool, it should be boolean. Otherwise, everything else should be text. Okay, so anything that's like object in this case will be converted to text. Okay, and we're basically appending this to this column dictionary here. And then when we come down here, we are basically generating a create table statement here. Create table, if it not exists, putting the table name, which is what we got up here. All right, that's the table name that will be created. And basically we are putting the column names as well as the column types, because right here in this dictionary we're putting the column and the SQL type. So this is what will be here. And then finally here we are basically executing this create table statement, and this will be creating the table successfully if it doesn't exist. And if there's any error, we are going to throw the error right here and exit. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute this. Okay, so we have executed this. Now this will just we have executed this, but the table has not been created because we have not called the function to actually do the work. So that is what we'll be doing next right here. Okay, so this will call the function to create the table before inserting the data. Okay, so this block here will just create the table from data frame. We're putting the cursor, the table name, and the data frame, which is what is defined up right here, and it's going to be getting passed here. It's going to generate the create statement. We're basically just calling it here, and it is going to create a table if all is good. Okay, so you can see when we run this create table from data frame, you can see that the message here is says table car prices created or already exists. Okay, so that means that we have our table created now. So if we go back over here to our database and refresh this, let's see if we're able to see this. Okay, so looks like it's not showing up yet, and that is probably because we have not committed. So we have to commit this connection actually. So I'm just going to put this connection commit message here, and this is basically going to commit our transaction and create our table. So we'll run it again, and you can see now if we refresh this, we hopefully should have that table created. Okay, so there we go. So you can see now we have the table created here with the columns, but probably we don't have data because we have not inserted. Okay, so this database now, or this table is empty. So at least we can see that we have created the table. Now the next thing that we will do is to insert the data. Okay, so we'll see here this converts the data frame into CSV format using to CSV. Basically, let me just walk you through this query. Okay, so we are inserting the data into PostgreSQL using copy. Okay, so using copy is much more effective than using insert. Okay, and it uses string IO to hold the CSV in memory instead of saving it to disk. So again, string IO is good if you don't want to load the data into memory. And then we will execute the copy to insert data efficiently into Postgres database and handle any errors. Okay, so this is what it's doing. We're basically using buffer string IO. We are converting our data frame to CSV. Okay, and this one will not be having the headers. And then we'll go ahead now and execute the copy statement. So we are basically copying the table from standard in, which is the in memory for string IO, where our data is stored for CSV, and it has its delimiters, and for any nulls we just want to put empty operators there, or empty for any nulls. And then we'll be copying this, so we'll just use the cursor to copy, to call the copy method, which will be copying the table, which is what is here, from memory. Okay, and if all is good, then it's going to load this data successfully into memory, and if there's any error, we will see the error here. So, and then finally we want to always commit, otherwise it's not going to insert our data. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, so here we go. So you can see now our data successfully loaded into this table. Now if we go back and refresh this, so we'll refresh this table. Okay, so you can see now we have data here. There we go, very good. And if we now run some queries here, we can see if our data is looking good. So we can say select, let's do the counts from car prices. Okay, so how much we should have 10,000. There we go. Okay, so 10,000, which is what we had in our file. So again, I showed you this file at the beginning. If you just highlight one of the field here, as long as not empty, you will see the count here, which is 10,001, but this includes the header. So our true actual records are 10,000. There we go. And we can do just a preview of some of these records. Okay, we run this, you can see that we have the data now available in your Postgres database. There we go. All right, so we do have the fields as well. You know, you have the brand, your model, year, and the rest of this, including the prices. Very good. Okay, so probably one other thing that we want to do here is to also execute a query here to confirm from our notebook here if everything is good. So we can execute a select query here to verify if our records are successfully loaded. I mean, we already confirmed it, but we just want to say if you didn't have the connection to your database and you just want to run it from here, then you can run the select query here to check that. So basically we are just executing select from our table and fetching the only like the first 10 rows here, and if all is good, then we should be able to get some records here, and if there's any error, then it's going to fail right here. Okay, so we'll execute this. There we go. So when you execute this, you can see that we have about 10 records available here. So 10 records retrieved from the car prices table, and this is the list of your 10 records. All right, so that means that we are able to successfully now read from our database after writing to it. Okay, so we loaded this data dynamically, created the table dynamically, loaded the data to the database, and then we are also able to retrieve that data from here. So you can actually confirm from your notebook here if the data was successfully loaded, and we can tell that from here that you have loaded that data. Now from here, if you wanted to transform this data, then you can just go ahead and expand this and add additional lines of code here to transform this data. You can even create visualizations from notebook using matplotlib and do any sort of data profiling that you would like to do for this data using your Python notebook right here. Okay, so this is super good. I just wanted to show you how to load data. I'm just going to save this, but yeah, I just wanted to quickly show you how you can load data from Amazon S3 to your PostgreSQL database. So in case there is a requirement for you to do that, then you can follow these steps. Okay, so I'm going to put this code in my GitHub account, and I'll also put the link for that GitHub in the video description, so that if you wanted to just copy this, then you can do that. But yeah, this is how you load data from Amazon S3 to your PostgreSQL database. So this is also good if you just wanted to even load data. Say if you didn't have data in your PostgreSQL database and you wanted to know how to load it. Sometimes it is kind of cumbersome to go through the process of figuring out how to write the create statement and the insert and the load and all of that. So this is also one other way that you can load data basically to your database and query that data. If you wanted to profile data that is in S3 using PostgreSQL database, then you can also do the same thing like this. Just load the data to your database and then just come here and do some data profiling for your data that is in S3. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so this is just one way of loading data into your database, doing some basic analysis, and just looking at how the data looks like, getting some insights from the data. And from here, this is how you do it. Okay, guys. All right, so that is how you do it. Now remember, again, you have to install AWS CLI if you wanted to read the data from S3, and also have your PostgreSQL database setup. So I have already done that, and again, I'll put the videos in the description if you're interested. All right, guys, that's all I had for you in this video. I hope it was helpful, and if it was, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel to stay updated for videos like this in future. All right, bye bye.